Welcome back to another edition of Leaders Lead, Winners Win. We talk a little bit about sales, we talk about winning, we talk, a hell of a lot about leadership. And today's one of those leadership conversations, a little bit more intimate. I'm wearing a Canadian tuxedo, and I want to talk to you about today. We're going to dive right in. If you like the show, share the show. It's important that you do so. We get shadow banned. We're demonetized. It is what it is. Uncle Rob, Pastor Rob, it is what it is. But if you share the show, it definitely helps us out. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about mistakes that I've made as a leader. And I think it's important to share those scars, if you will, share those things with you and share it with the world so that hopefully you don't make the same mistakes that I made. That's the whole idea, really, of this podcast, Robbie, is leaders lead, winners win. Share some scars, share some triumphs, share some lessons that we've learned along the way so that people out there don't make the same mistakes. But then more importantly, they deliver the right product. They deliver the right experience to their, not only clients, but their people that they lead, which is their team members. And I'm going to go through four things. When I really sat down and looked at what are some mistakes you made in 2024, 2023, specifically as the CEO of a mortgage company or as a RVP or as a vice president of another company, it came down to four things. I call it the four A's. One of them is Assholness. We'll talk about that at the end, but the four A's specifically of mistakes that we've made. I think there's a few rules in life, and one of the rules in life is not to make the same mistake twice. So learning from these lessons is important. I'll talk about what that specific thing is. I'll give you an example. I'll talk about what I'm doing or what I've done to ultimately change the outcome to make sure that not only the team member, but the client, the X, Y, Z, whatever it is, that thing that you're leading, that person that you're leading, male, female, I don't care what race, religion, creed, color, sexual orientation, I don't care what it is, that person is into, that you lead them differently and lead them better. The first one I'll get into, the first A, so to speak, is actions do not match words. We say this all the time in our organization, but we'll never ask you to do something that we haven't done or we wouldn't do alongside with you. Sometimes, but most of the time, 99% of the time is true, but sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes we say, hey, you should X, Y, and Z work out a certain way and so on, and we don't do the same. Sometimes we say we need to call X and we don't do it ourselves, but our actions aren't matching the words that we're asking our people or the words that we say. Secondly, it's also about honoring your word. If we say you're going to do something, you got to do it. The mistake that I've made as a leader is saying I was going to do something and not delivering or following through. That creates distrust. You want to create just trust in general quickly, do the things you're going to say you're going to do. Honor your word. When your actions don't align with your words, things start to go sideways pretty quick and you start to make mistakes as a leader. People stop believing in you. And definitely felt that in 2023 and 2024. And it's something that we're committed, and I'm committed specifically to moving forward. An example, man, there's many. One of which is like, for example, for me, led the company in closings. That's great. I ask our people to call 10 people a day or 15 people a day. Call them twice. It's not something that I did specifically, but I led the way in closings, and sometimes production trumps all. But if you're asking someone to do something, you should probably do it yourself. And I probably would have seen better results. They would have seen better results because I'm asking them to do something that I'm doing alongside with them. That's something we're doing, or something that maybe was an example. Moving forward, though, again, if you ask someone to do something, you probably should do it with them. And I think that's important. Actions equal what you say you're going to do. You might as well follow through, especially if you're leading a company. Second A, man, this is my biggest flaw, hands down. Made so many mistakes here. Even relationship-wise, leadership-wise, I can go on and on about this. The second A is Being the advice monster. How many times have you came home and your wife is frustrated with a coworker or something that happened in her day, or frustrated with your kids, and they're venting? And you, as a human, again, I'm a male in this position, as the husband or fiance, you say, I'm going to listen to this, but man, I might give her the best piece of advice I've ever given. And she's not looking for it, and it turns into a fight. Some people just want to vent. Some people don't want the help. And if you are the advice monster, which is the second, if you're the advice monster, the first thing you want to do is speak. You're not listening with your two ears and one mouth. You're not listening with the intent to understand and be empathetic and just hear them out. You're listening with the intent to respond. It's a huge mistake that I make, and I still make it every day. And I'm trying to get better. But being the advice monster, because you're in the position of power, because you're the patriarch, because whatever realm that might be, because you're the loan officer and that's a client, because you're the CEO and that's a team member, you want to give them advice because either one, you've been through that specific situation and you want to give them, the best possible. You want to give them what you experienced through that situation and how to get through it, because you want to cause them less pain and give them the best advice you possibly can. Or two, if that's not the case, you just want to put your 2 cents in. And you don't always need to fucking do so. Sometimes you need to shut your mouth and listen with empathy with your 2 ears and just ask that person, plenty of examples. Hey, I'm struggling. Okay, talk to me about what you're struggling with. The X, Y, and Z. Well, what you haven't done is you haven't called your leads. You haven't done this. Start giving them advice on things. Well, if it's your significant other, well, she just speaks and she talks and she cuts me off and this, that, and the other. Well, maybe what you should do is X, Y, and Z. My advice to you, as I'm talking about the advice monster, and I gave you examples, what I'm doing and what I have done, is do one simple thing. Ask them. If someone is venting, if someone is talking to you about something that is important to them and they're venting, ask them a simple question. Would you like me to just listen so that you can vent? Or would you like me to give you some sort of advice or some sort of answer to your problems? Can I help problem solve this with you? Here's the reality. 90% of people just want to bitch about the solution or the problem. They don't want the solution. And if you're an advice monster like me, that's really tough to hear, because you just want to help. You just want to help and solve problems. You're a problem solver. It's what you would like to do. Not everybody wants that solution. Not everybody wants the solution to their problems, but obviously they don't want to be spoken to in that way or make you feel like you have the upper hand because you've been through that before. So again, mistakes I've made as a leader: actions don't line up with words, giving too much advice when maybe it's not even warranted, and being the advice monster. Number 3, making assumptions. Man, oh man. How many of you leaders have had someone call in sick and it's a Monday, and because you have called in on a Monday because you had a long weekend, I can give you many of examples here. But making assumptions in leadership is a huge no-no. Seeking to understand is the way that is the key, is the way, not a way, it's the way to becoming a better leader. Asking great questions, not assuming anything, is super important. There's these preconceived notions or biases that we all have, and we need to leave those aside when you're in a leadership role and not assume anything. I can't tell you how many times I've made that assumption that that person has stayed out too late on the weekend, or that person is going to quit, or that person is assuming that I would screw them over, whatever the case is. Assumptions are killers of leadership. It is all about seeking to understand. What I'm doing, what I've done, pretty simple, guys. Just ask better questions. Leave your biases to the side. Leave your ego to the side. Leave your emotions to the side. And just ask questions and see what's really going on. If you come to the conclusion, that's a hell of a lot different than assuming. Coming to the conclusion is having predicated notions that you leave to the wayside, but ultimately ask questions, ask and point out things and verify things so that you can come to that ultimate conclusion of which maybe you were thinking in the beginning or maybe you weren't. It's really interesting. You'll find that maybe the assumptions you made probably 70-80% of the time are fucking wrong. And it's a killer. It's a complete killer when it comes to leadership. You got to seek to understand. All right, number 4, last but not least. Being an asshole. Assholness. Mean text messages, mean phone calls. A lot of it comes from assumption. A lot of it comes from, I guess not an excuse, moving quickly, too fast, in my opinion, but being an asshole. Not having the right emotional intelligence, just mistakes that I've made. Not having the right information, not seeking to understand. Maybe having a little bit of frustration or feedback that you should have given said person, and then all of a sudden you're an asshole to them. That's one of the biggest mistakes that I've ever made, is just being an asshole. It is what it is. The 4 A's: actions not equaling to words, advice monster, assumptions, being an asshole. I have many of examples of which I apologize for. These things that I'm talking about, what I'm doing to work on this, it's pretty simple. One, I think you have to have. Let me just talk about assholeness real quick. I apologize. One is you have to have peace. You can't have fucking people mess with your peace. I'm talking about at home. I'm talking about in the workplace. I'm talking about with your friend group. I'm talking about with your spouse and significant other, with your finances, with God. You have to be at peace. You have to find your peace. Because if not, it's going to eat you up alive. It doesn't matter. There's so many things I can say about excuses and so on and so forth. But the reality is you got to find your peace. The second thing is you got to stay true to who you are. You got to stay true to who you are as a human being is super important. What your core values are, what your who you are, what you stand for, so on and so forth. That's super important. And sometimes it's okay to be a fucking asshole. Sorry, it is. It's okay to be an asshole, because if you stand for something, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. You probably heard that before. But the reality is, if you stand for something, sometimes you're going to be an asshole to defend it. If you don't stand for anything, you'll just be a nice guy and you'll get stomped over all over the time, every time. You'll be a doormat. Sometimes you got to stand up for yourself, and it's not easy to stand up for yourself. It's not easy to talk about these things. It's not easy, but however, you can do it in a better way. Things to do to stop being maybe rude or maybe come off that way or be unapproachable. Let me give you a few things. One, get in tune with your emotions. Have the best EQ you possibly can have, or emotional quotient, your EQ, your emotional intelligence. 2, read books. I'm telling you right now, there are books out there that you have not read, that you do not understand, that will open your eyes and your mind to something you've never thought possible. Read books. 3, seek wise counsel. It's important for you to find somebody, if you're struggling with one of these 4 things in general, or in leadership in general, it's important for you to seek wise counsel and find somebody that's going to be able to help you out. I come to you with these leadership lessons over 23 and 24 as we've opened this company and have had a lot of great success, and we're very happy with where we're going, where we've been, and so on and so forth, because I feel like it's an important reflection point for people like you guys maybe that are either going into business, have been in business, whatever the case is, to not make the same mistakes that I made. Whether it's saying something, not honoring your word, not having your actions align with your words, whether it's, again, being the advice monster and telling people exactly what to do, how to do it, so on and so forth, making bad assumptions, making good assumptions, but assumptions in general and preconceived notions are a no-no. Leave your biases to the side, or just being an asshole. These are great lessons for you to learn in your leadership journey, and hopefully you learned a little bit about what to do, what not to do today in today's session. So I appreciate you guys. Share the show if you appreciate, obviously, what we delivered today. The only way we grow is through you sharing it on your story, on your YouTube, the links, so on and so forth. We couldn't appreciate you more. Thanks for watching, and thanks again for another episode of Leaders Lead, Winners Win. Thanks.